It's always in the news. Cybercriminals attacking great organizations, wreaking havoc on the trust of their brand.
We socialize cybersecurity for you to raise awareness.
Interviewing leaders who built and protect great brands.
We help talented people enter into this incredible field, and we share our research at blockbuster true cybercrime stories.
This is Cybercrime Junkies. And now the show. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cybercrime Junkies. I'm your host, David Morrow. In the studio today is my always positive and fantabulous co-host, Mark Mosher. Mark, how are you, sir?
David, I am doing great. I'm excited today, and it's not because I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew. We've got one of our special
Which is not a sponsor,
guests.
by the way.
I was going to ask.
We've got one of our special
putting it out
guests.
there. If anybody's interested, we drink a lot of Mountain Dew here. So if anybody's interested in hooking us up, we would be. Just send us a case, man. That's fine.
An IV drip would be appreciated.
Yes, absolutely great.
David, I'm excited today because our special guest returning once again. It's like that cool cousin you're always excited to see at family get-togethers. David, who's on the show with us today?
The JON DiMaggio joins us today, and John is a senior researcher, phenomenal leader over at Analyst One. Analyst One is a remarkable resource in the security industry, very well respected, relied upon by millions. And John DiMaggio, thank you so much for returning to the studio with us.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely. I've been here so many times now. You know, when you guys are out on vacation or sick, I expect, like on the Tonight Show when they have a fill-in, I expect to get a call.
I have no problem you hosting a show. That would be fantastic.
That'd be fun.
That would be great.
I love it. I love it. So today we're going to talk about
Ransomware Diaries, Volume 2.
So, okay, you got to let me play with the toys once in a while.
You gotta
Like,
play
if
with
not
I
now,
love it,
when?
man. This is great.
Right? If not now,
great.
when? If not us, who? Right? To quote Kennedy. Tell us about this. So, for those that may not be aware, and you will be shortly, John has gone undercover, spoken to some of the leaders in cybercrime gangs, ransomware gangs around the world. So a lot of the research is published. A lot of the other information is shared among law enforcement and other things that we can't talk about or that we don't know that John can't talk about. And it's really, really important because when we think about understanding, we think about security, right? How can we adequately provide cybersecurity and remain secure ourselves if we don't know what we're securing against, right? We have to understand the behavioral analytics. We have to understand the people behind it. Would anybody agree with that?
Yeah.
You
can't defend against the foe you don't know.
You know.
What was that, Mosher?
people
You
and
can't
data,
defend
that's
against.
a lot.
Yeah, you can't defend against the foe you don't know.
No. Yeah.
The foe you don't know. All right. That could be a bumper sticker.
Right. I got that off a t-shirt.
So John,
We could change the meaning of FOMO with that.
he just did, didn't he?
I think I just did.
So John, Ransomware Diaries Volume 2. Like, explain to us. Volume 1 was about LockBit 3.0. That was phenomenal. Yes, it was blockbuster information. It has been cited and referenced so many times and so many, like, I'm going through things, I'm going down rabbit holes, and I come across that again. Like, it keeps popping up all over the place. Walk us through what Ransomware Diaries Volume 2 is about.
Yeah, sure. So, when I finished the first volume, I certainly didn't expect the reaction that I got, and I didn't know what I had. And you're correct. I was amazed. It was by far the best work I've done in my career. And after that, I started getting calls. You'll get few calls here and there from media, people in the industry. Well, I was having governments from around the world, intelligence agencies, not just in the U.S.,
Wow.
but in allied countries also reaching out and asking questions and things. So, you know, I really felt like I was onto something, and you know, I definitely felt like I put myself at risk doing that. And because they, you know, at the time they didn't know who I was. So when I finished it and I put my name on it, shortly after, LockBit changed their profile picture. I think we talked about that last time. I think so anyway. They put my profile picture as their avatar on the dark web.
Okay.
And
Okay, let's pause there for a second.
yeah.
Like, think about what you just said. So you do an article, we're like wanting to learn, click on a mouse, on a keyboard, we create some images, we publish it, and all of a sudden the most prolific cyber crime gang, like, generating enough income as a third world power,
small country,
right,
has on their media your avatar. As their avatar, they have your face. That has got. How did that make you feel?
Oh, it was a pucker up moment for sure.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh wow. You know, when I turned on when I logged in and I was looking at my screen at first, you know, those moments where you can't, like, something's wrong and you're like, oh shit, did I do that? You know, what happened? Why is my picture there? And then I realized that's not my account. Like, I didn't do that. You know, and then fast forward, it's funny because so many people wanted information about that afterwards. So I'm not gonna say which one, but I'm sitting talking to one of those intelligence agencies, and I'm showing, you know, like a screenshot to validate something I said, but the screenshot today doesn't show LockBit's profile. It showed my picture. So I'm having to explain to them, no, this is not me. This is the bad guy. And then I'm having to show evidence to support that, which I'm not going to get into, but to validate that it was their account. But it was really weird. And, you know, of course, security researchers who follow it, you know, they have to see that. Fortunately, you know, there are other things out there, and I hope that eventually they'll get tired of having my face as their avatar. But for the time being, you know, it is what it is. I had reached out to LockBit, and I said to him, you know, it's only fair if you give me your face for my avatar, but I haven't got
that. Nice ask. I like that.
That's fantastic.
But
so,
after that,
yeah.
you know,
so what led into the Ransomware Diaries Volume 2? Because this is a different take. It's somewhat related to LockBit 3.0, but it's a very human side of it. It's almost like a biography.
Right.
Yeah. So let me just bridge this just real quick.
Yeah,
so
please.
A couple weeks after that happened with the picture, you know, I should say burned. I had put away all of those accounts and systems that I used to access it, and they were not touched anything. A couple weeks go by, and I went ahead and I'm like, let me just check. And, you know, I had messages, and it was now LockBit Sup was, you know, talking to me directly. LockBit Sup, the account that LockBit uses to communicate, and it was in their Tox channel, which is their encrypted communication that they use to talk with their affiliate hackers and stuff. And they're talking to me directly, and they're like, hey, they're calling me Johnny, and they're telling me I'm their new favorite researcher, you know, kind of like in a taunting way. And they're telling me that if there's a movie about this, that, you know, they think that I'm a handsome man, and maybe a combination of either Bruce Willis or Chuck Norris should play me. The whole thing is so strange. Like, I get Bruce Willis, we're both bald, but Chuck Norris, like, that's out there. But anyway, they were just messing with me. But it was just it was a strange dynamic, but it was more of like a fun cat and mouse dynamic. But not, I say fun meaning not like we're going to kill you, but like
no,
you know,
it was
hey,
like, it seemed like it was in jest, but it was respectful.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you read the Tox messages, did you read it in like a Russian accent in your mind? Because whenever I was reading this work, I was like, this is in a Russian accent. This is in John's accent.
I hired the voice actor JON DiMaggio to come do it.
Exactly. It's hilarious.
No, but that the reason I wanted to say that is because them now talking to me as who I am is what's going to change from Ransomware Diaries Volume 1 to this. So once that happened, I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I had, all these criminals in the forums talking about it. I had criminals, ransomware criminals reaching out directly to me on Tox, on the encrypted channel, that me and only bad guys have the quote unquote address to, my Tox ID. But we're going back and forth. And so I just changed my screen name. I changed it. I made it not John instead of what I had it. And I changed my avatar to be me. And, I began to try to figure out what was next. And, going back to the corporate side of this, I had to have something for RSA. I mean, that's just the truth. I could say like the timing was this or that, but the truth is I had to have something for RSA. So I started to try to think. It takes me a long time to do this because I have to create accounts, develop personas, have sock puppets, do all this stuff. And I can't do that.
Because volume 1, right, because volume 1, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but volume 1 was you being totally undercover. They did not know who you were until it was published. This volume 2, you go in as Jon DiMaggio with the clever avatar of your picture, right? And then it says not John, right? But everybody knows it's you. And then you begin some communication on the dark forums.
That's correct. And
so, did you know what you were going after when you first began it?
No, I didn't. And it was literally. It was like a gift. It was in minutes. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to do something. I had been talking to Dina over at another place, and she was like, yeah, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm not sure. And then all of a sudden this tweet, which you have on your screen, just popped up. And there's a researcher there named Export, who I like a lot and I talk to frequently, really, really smart analyst and researcher. But he posted this image from the forums of this gentleman named Bassterlord, who had a screenshot also in a conversation with LockBit over Tox. And that was he had posted that on one of the Russian criminal forums, and in it, it's him and LockBit talking, and him saying, "Okay, I'm going to start working for you on March 1st." And LockBit saying, "Yeah, great, looking forward to it," type of thing. And Export tweeted that out. Hey, here's our newest affiliate starting March 1st, which was the next day.
And did he tweet that? So he tweeted that on the public Twitter, on like Twitter,
correct?
So that people that don't go to the dark web could have seen this.
Yeah, so
I love the blurred lines. I love the blurred lines between Tox channels, the dark web, and the fact that everybody's still using the same device. They just go, yeah, let's make this one public, and like let's make this one dark web public.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, some of these bad guys, the ransomware guys, actually have public Twitter accounts.
Oh yeah, that's the point I wanted to make for the listeners. Like these guys have a brand. Go check it out because it's shocking. Well, when you first see it, it's shocking.
It is, and I had talked with law enforcement actually about them and their accounts, and because I don't want their accounts, anybody's account shut down. Like I think I need a way to communicate. So I don't want it. So I just asked them. I'm like, is this going to go away? Am I going to lose this access? So apparently Twitter will take down your account if you say something that they don't agree with. But the bad guy ransomware guys can be there all day long and they won't take them down. So
love America.
So their accounts aren't going anywhere. And that's not me hitting Twitter. I don't get into social media stuff. I just thought that was really like, I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't want them taken down because I use it to talk to them and I get to see what they're saying. There's intelligence there. But it shocked me that they're aware of it and they decided to leave it up because they're not doing this type of work. Twitter isn't. They just don't think it's bad enough to take down, apparently.
Right. Yeah.
When
you think about the content of what's posted, right? It's like somebody joins a gang. Okay, well, it's almost like reporting on news. Like this mafia guy, was gambling over here. Okay, well, like you could tweet about that. You're not promoting hate or anything like that. It's nothing. You're not promoting it. It's just a statement.
Well, when you threaten researchers, though, it is.
Well, yeah,
threaten researchers, it is, and that happens.
Yeah,
that's
right. That's a good.
That's
point.
Actually part of. Yeah, and that's part of the story later. It's not an important part, but that is part of the story. But let's get there. Let me not jump too far ahead here. So I saw that tweet, and I'm on a lot of the dark.
This is
That's
Bassterlord.
Bassterlord, yeah. So that's what I did is I went and I started to look for his sort of digital footprint on the dark web. He was on the top sites that ransomware guys live on that I expected him to be on. And yeah, I noticed in that image he has what says National Hazard Society. So I was like,
right,
I wonder what this is.
Yeah, what is
Yeah. So so fast forward, that's actually the name of the his crew, if you will. It's like
right.
his gang.
He
that's what
joined
they're
it,
telling
right?
me.
It was existing, and then he joined it, but then he eventually
That's
almost
right.
seemed to like run it.
Yeah, he
seems.
runs it now. Yeah, but that was what when he was not skilled in ransomware and or he just knew some basic hacking type stuff, really minimal things. Was more of a student of it than an actual criminal. He was trained by that group. Someone took him in. But the image that you have on your screen there, that was when I looked at his profile. That was the next step is to go look at their previous posts and threads, and I was astonished when I found this. But he had published this manual. It was called the Ransomware Manual, Volume 1, and it had this amazing artwork. And then I had it translated into English, and it was basically a guide, a rough guide, but a guide on how to commit ransomware crime.
Wow.
I say a rough guide. I mean, it was this version of it. It was put together, but it wasn't put together as well as the second one. It was, but this one, it had great art. The art actually came from this anime artist named Yumi. Bassterlord has, he's really into magma art and anime, and so both the name Bassterlord and the art that he used in his manuals come from that genre of art and entertainment. So he used that, and going through it, it has all sorts of like anti-US or anti-democracy, I guess I should say, propaganda. It walks through commands to enter, tools, but not only did he present this manual, he also presented exploits and hack tools to download for free.
Wow.
So here you are, you've got a manual, you've got a file with hack tools and even exploits. Making matters worse, though, this is how he made his money with the first one. If you're getting this manual, you're probably not skilled enough to actually have an environment to practice it in, because you have to be able to breach and get into an environment. Right. So he would sell you that. So here's the manual, here's the tools, but if you want to practice,
he acted as
I have
IAB. He acted as an initial access broker to sell, because he gave the first manual away for free. Also. Yeah, his first manual was given away for free. The second one he asked a ton of money for. The first one, though, he gave away for free, but he still had to make some money on it. And so he sold access to all of the different places he had access to. Interesting.
Correct. And they weren't like little mom and pop shops. It was like it was an oil and energy company in Africa and things like that. Like they were big organizations that just weren't aware they'd been breached. And he was just sitting on them and using that to make money for his training.
Yeah, I love the translation, because you have to kind of read this in a Russian accent,
right?
But enter the domain, then just let the X shut down the machine, and you do dirty things. Like that is just awesome.
Yeah, see, I can't do that. My lips move when I read, so I can't do that.
That's funny.
Dirty, and dirty probably trained us better to bad things, but
so explain this to us. Tell us about this, John. So you began conversing with him, this Bassterlord guy. And you got to know kind of the reasons why he got into this, because and you have in your work, you kind of explain your theory on evil and on bad people. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, he kind of surprised me. So, when I reached out to him, I said, hey, do you know who I am? And he was like, yeah, I follow your work. I know who you are. I'm willing to talk to you. And we sort of, we began communicating. And this lasted for, several weeks to a month that, we were going back and forth and just getting to know the guy. It was weird because, if I'd met him, in the US under different circumstances, I could sit there and have a beer. And, we had a lot in common as far as interests. We both like to technology. We both have a fascination with hacking. We both like to train people. We both like to write and create content. So from that we had a lot in common. And then, there's back to what you asked though. There's two types of bad guys: the ones that are just born bad and are just truly bad to the core, and there's other ones that could have been a decent person, but something happened along the way, and they went down a path where things got to a point where they couldn't turn back, and they just accepted that. And that's Bassterlord. He's just come from a part of the world where he had a lot of challenges and diversity and things of that nature, and the path that he took was, in my opinion, the wrong path. But I also understand he did what he had to do, but he kept doing it, and that's the thing. That's the choice. Is he kept going down that wrong path long after he fixed all the problems that he had, because money does fix a lot of problems when he lives in a part of the Ukraine that's controlled by Russia. They were poor, didn't have any money, and that's no longer the case. But he still decides to steal money from people. So you're a thief. That's at the end of the day, the guy's a thief.
He's still a thief.
Well, and there's a difference between sympathy and empathy, right? Like you can empathize
100%.
with them, right? You can have tactical empathy, as Chris Voss talks about, but like you can understand the reasoning behind it, and having that understanding is what it's all about. It doesn't mean you agree with that or you feel the same way or you would have done the same choices, but to understand that is the core of like behavioral analytics.
Right.
Yes, and that's something I've learned over the past couple of years, because back when I used to just strictly chase packets, I just had this thing in my head that these were all, cockroach scumbags out there, and many of them are, but but you have to go into it like just kind of like a blank slate, like trying to understand. If you're going to look at the human side, you can't go in with an opinion already. So that's kind of what I did with this. But this is the first time where I've gone in and actually liked the person and been like, man, I wish I could change this guy. I wish I could help him and get him to switch sides and work
what was
with
the
us
reasoning?
World.
What was the reasoning he gave for why he started in cybercrime?
Well, it was a sort of a build up, but yeah, he had a lot of, they didn't have any money. He's 27 years old now. So in 2014, when Russia invaded that region of the Ukraine, he was around 17, and so his family was poor. He was working as a security guard in a school at night, and there was no heat and it was cold, and they didn't have benefits. His mother had some kidney stone issues and other health problems, and they were literally the area was being bombed, and his mother was having a kidney attack, and he ran to the neighbor and was like, hey, please take us to the hospital. I'll give you anything I can, please. And the neighbor did. So they made it in this war zone. They make it all the way to the hospital, and they get the help that they need. But now they've incurred even more debt, and just the struggle of everything falling apart around him, having no money, having all this debt. He felt like that was the only way he could make money was to look to these hacking forums and ask for help, which is what he did. And at that time, there's a gentleman named I always say it's wrong, Larutu. It's LALARTU. And that person has a very strong context back in the day with the GanCrab ransomware, and is he's one of the guys who brokered the deal with their affiliate that grew up to become Revil. So he was very well connected. Wow. And that was who was leading that hazard agency crew. And he brought Bassterlord on, and they started with really minimal stuff. He just started training him how to do phishing emails to get their hooks into targets. And Bassterlord was really good at profiling companies and people and figuring out their like personal stuff they were into and crafting good phishing emails. And he really got into a lot of companies, getting the attention in the ransomware community on the forums. And eventually Larutu let him start working with Revil as part of his crew. So here he goes. He's only making like $10,000 a month, which is a lot, but it's not a lot compared to making hundreds of thousands to millions.
From working janitorial services in a cold facility where he's got to wear 2 coats, which is what he describes, to making $10,000 a month. He felt like he hit the jackpot, but then it was going to even increase exponentially from there. And then he writes that manual. Once he learns the craft, he writes the manual, right? And then he gets the attention of the leaders of
LockBit. So that
of
manual,
LockBit.
we could just take a step back here. That manual is so that is, he took in Ransomware Diaries Volume 1, I talked about before LockBit was known, they held a contest on the Russian forums. It was an article contest where you wrote about hacking techniques and things. His submission was a base version of the manual. So he took that submission came in, it was one of the top placed winners, and he won money, and that's how LockBit got to know Bassterlord first. And that's what he won. And he won some money, and that's what began the relationship. Now, this was long before March. This was like in 2021 or 2020. Right. It was the 2020 paper contest. So he wasn't working for him. That's what began that relationship. And so later on, when that manual, was released, when Volume 1 came out, you had it up there a minute ago, but LockBit's response when he first saw the manual was just one word, and that word was
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's won the article contest. He's then he makes a more advanced version and adds to it and makes it a ransomware manual. LockBit's like, hey, this is brilliant. And he really sort of catches the attention of the community and really starts getting respect and becomes much more boisterous on the forums and things of that nature, talking with other criminals, making other connections, grows into becoming an access broker, starts working with not just REvil, but then working as part of the team, still not by himself, but as a member of the team, working with REvil.
Oh, wow.
And that's important, because when I say a member, he's not the one directly in the interface. He's not the one, picking their targets and all that, but he's supporting it. He also worked with Ransomware X, and what was the other one? Avedon. So he's been with a handful of known groups, but it wasn't until he put these manuals out that he got enough respect and attention that he was able to go and actually start working directly for himself as an affiliate. And the difference of that is kind of like working as an employee for a company versus owning your own company. You should anyway make more money owning your own company, and that's what happened once he went from member of a team to an actual direct affiliate.
Wow.
And you eventually kind of you kept the conversation going, and you were curious where he was. Was he in Russia? Was he in Ukraine? And he described his neighbor's house being bombed by missiles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And aircraft coming overhead when he was trying to rush his mom to the hospital. And then he released this image which shows him walking, and you were able to identify kind of where this was.
Yes.
So he's a young guy.
Yes. Well, so based on him talking about the being invaded and bombed and all that, it was it was easy enough to figure out he's in somewhere in that region of the Ukraine that had been taken over in the first invasion in 2014. So looking at that, there's one specific area in that region that is known for their factories and they have like steel mills and things like that, and all that stuff going to have lots of smoke towers and very industrial looking. And when you look in the background, you zoom in and you can see that. And then I compared that with other pictures and was able to validate within probably 15, 20 miles tops of where he was, it's from that city based off it in the background that this is where he's located. And then eventually he started to talk about it more as well. But he's been there his whole life, and I talked to Export about it. That's a very dangerous area of the world. There's it's almost like martial law, because yes, Russia came in there, so the Ukraine government's not running things. Russia kind of runs things to a point, but it's not like you can just call the police or something if someone's breaking into your home. And half the time people breaking into your home are organized crime that run that area or are affiliated with Russian government. So he's in a really dangerous area for a person, to have money from ransomware, regardless of how you get it. That's a place where people want to take things from you. And as you saw by the picture, not that it always makes a difference, but he's not a huge guy. So, unless you have weapons and people to protect you, you're going to be at risk in that area.
Yeah. Why do you think he's so anti-West an anti-American? Is that because of is it a matter of survival, do you think? Like he has to be if he's in
No.
Russia-controlled Ukraine?
I was wrong on this. If there's one thing I could change about my report, I was wrong on this, and I just didn't have the time to do more research. So my opinion initially was, you're from the Ukraine, and here you are supporting Russia. You're betraying your people. But at the end of the day, what I found out is after World War II, a lot of Russian soldiers stayed in that area along the border of Russia and the Ukraine. And that area is very dominant with Russian culture. That's the main language that's spoken in that region, even before the invasion. And apparently that's what made Russia decide it was okay to invade there, is because there were more Russians than there were Ukrainians. So it doesn't change my point. I still think you're from that area. Like it's got to be difficult. But what I have learned is that, I'm a little bit, I guess, naive to what it might be like to live there. And if your family and your culture and everything is pro-Russia and you only know that from birth, then I guess that's not really, I can't really call the guy a traitor from that. Right. But I still think I still have issues with it, but I should have portrayed it differently in my report, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Makes sense.
Because that's a minimal thing, and that's what the bad guys grabbed onto, and they missed a lot of the bad guys were talking about that over the actual points of the report, and that's really such a small part of it,
Right. So when we think about his motive and what drives him into cybercrime versus legitimate livelihood, he tells a story of when he was younger, a girlfriend breaking up with him, and she's like, you're sitting behind a computer, you're not going to make any money behind a computer. Why would you do that? And when you think about it, in the area of the world that he was at the time of it, there's no cybersecurity jobs available. Like, I'm sure there are, but in the middle of war-torn, eastern Ukraine, it's not like CrowdStrike's opening up an office there and can go employ him, right?
Right. I mean, there's probably not even like broadband, high speed internet everywhere. So exactly. It's a whole different world there. So he had a lot of challenges there, but he had the girlfriend, told him he wasn't going to amount to anything, just sitting on his computer all day. He had a teacher who told him, English, told him, he wasn't going to be able to do that. Eventually the guy goes to college. He didn't finish it, but he started college there. And he couldn't make a living doing things. But once that money started coming in, he said it was when he first got that $10,000, it changed his whole life. Like, that was so much money for him, and that he was able to get out of debt. But he liked that money. He liked that life. But more than anything, I could tell with the guy, he loves attention. He feeds off that attention and that fame in the criminal world. Like, it was so important. It was more important to him to put himself at risk of getting caught, so that he would forever be known in the ransomware community. He should have taken his money and just disappeared, but instead, he wanted me to have this story come out. I mean, when I said I want to talk to you and do this, like, usually people would be hesitant, and he like ran towards it. He was like, yes, I would love to do this. And after the report came out, he was taunting it, and he was like, I don't like everything in here, but this is my story. This is the best account of my life, and I will always be known in ransomware history. Like, he said that on the forums to other Russian criminals. So it was it was interesting. And this guy had some big victims, some large organizations and important organizations over the course of his career.
You talk about this one here, Booth. And it was when he was working affiliated through LockBit. Walk us through this.
Yes. Yeah. So once he rejoined LockBit, he's running a team. So it's him and either 2 or 3 other individuals, and they immediately start, and they have had a high number of victims for a small team so far, but they were hitting a lot of targets in Australia in March. And there was Booth, and then there was another one called IP Australia, that were both targeted around the time that he was talking to me about his victims. And so just looking at it, it was fairly clear that that's who he's targeting. He denies some of the victims, but there's some pretty good evidence that it's accurate, and through the looking at the wallets and victims paying and things like that, and what other people work for him have slipped up and said and things. But there's plenty of others that he's bragged about, that he's targeted, like India's Department of Revenue, the Uruguay Navy. There was the big game company, Rockstar Video Games. There's a handful of them that he has. Even some university. There was a New Mexico State University. It hit some technology companies, Panasonic. He hit Olympus, the camera company that makes digital cameras and all that. So he's had some fairly large known companies that should have some decent security. But according to him, half of these people, the way they get in, he doesn't even have to try with the phishing campaigns, because half of them leave their public infrastructure, they leave devices with default passwords on, and he's shown me evidence of that, which just shocks me.
Wow.
And he walks right in. So,
well, that gets into like lulsac and like how they just, like, some of these hacktivist groups have formed simply because they want to look for laughable security. And he goes, and there's a lot out there, right?
Yeah.
And so
there is.
Yeah, so you mentioned that he was arguably involved in the Rockstar games. That happened right at the time of one of the more recent Uber breaches too, where it was almost like MFA fatigue or something. Somehow they got in. Did he mention anything about how he got into Rockstar, or no?
He didn't, but what he did tell me is he still has access.
Still has access.
That's great. Wow.
That is always interesting.
I take it back. He did tell me how he got. Well, he told me a little bit. He told me he got in directly through one of their employees who did click on one of his phishing emails, and that he started with that one system and then moved from there, but that he still has access to their environment is what he said.
Interesting. So just to recap here, this is he's over here on the right. Here's Bassterlord, and then he gets affiliated with the group in the center, which is that National Hazard Agency. You gotta love. It's like a television show, and then they're affiliated with some of the main ransomware gangs and the codes, right?
Yes,
that are over there. There's that LaRotu guy who kind of got him involved, and he's one of the guys who helped create our evil. And then some of their victims are listed down here below. This is a good graph. So for the listeners, check out the video on the YouTube channel, because it kind of walks everybody through this. It's really pretty interesting.
The most important one.
Yeah,
I left out the most important one though. Maximum Industries. So he won't admit that he did that, but I've seen screenshots, and he knows way too much about how they got in. He showed screenshots of like the passwords being default and all that other stuff. And so Maximum Industries, though, for those who don't know, because it was publicized as SpaceX being breached. SpaceX was not. Maximum Industries, their subcontractor was, and then they took the engineering diagrams for the equipment that Maximum Industries made for SpaceX, and they tried to extort SpaceX because they had those. Wow. So, but that's probably, that should be big news. Like that's big. That's big. Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a question. We've referenced screenshots several times, and is that, and maybe I'm just not aware, but is that like the proof of life for some of these cyber criminals? And I know you referenced it as well in your conversations with law enforcement. How is that? What does that accomplish for people in that space?
Yeah. So a lot of the screenshots come from forums where they're bragging to other criminals. So for example, this is really interesting story we didn't touch on with victims, but for an example, he had mentioned that he had targeted and breached a DoD organization, but he wouldn't tell me who. So I had to go look, and I found on one of the forums him bragging about breaching the DoD organization that's behind all the accounting and retirement funds and all that stuff for the Army. I can't think of their name, DFAX or something like that. But the point is, it had access to data to everybody in the military, and so I went and I found evidence where he's then bragging to some other cyber criminals, and he posts a screenshot of a confidential document to show proof. And so I immediately stopped what I was doing, and I called the FBI at that point, and I was like, look, I can't say 100%, but he's told me X. These other guys here he's bragging to them about it. Here's a screenshot. Anything, you could Photoshop anything, but that's figuring out if that's accurate or not is more their domain. But I needed to let them know that this was happening, because it was real time. This wasn't like something, well, I say real time. It was March when I found it. February was when this thing started. So it was pretty fresh, and I don't think they had actually been ransomed yet. So I wanted to make sure that they knew. And the thing is, the reason it wasn't ransomed is because he was using that in his training manual, the second volume of his training manual, which came out in December of 2022. So just a few months ago, he was using that as he had passwords and stuff for people to log in so they could practice on that. And he was selling that for $10,000 a pop, but it came with that access with it. So it was well worth it he only sold 10 copies. Like, that was his decision, only sell 10 copies, but he only sold 10 copies. But one of those copies ended up in the hands of the cybersecurity company Prodaft, and that's what sort of began what eventually led to Bassterlord's quote unquote retirement. If it's real or not is another story, but that's sort of what led us down that road.
Yeah, and so a couple points. Let me unpack what you just said. So you just brought up something really interesting about behavioral analytics, and that is there are some ransomware gangs that brag about having compromised something when really they just scraped data or they bought data, and they're just trying to get a name in the industry, right? That seems to happen. But somebody like him who's demonstrated and shown activity, and then you observe, he's not like reaching out to you or reaching out to the victim and trying to make money off it right away. He's actually reaching out to his peers and saying, guys, you want to check this out? I just got this, and here's some screenshots to prove it. That has much more credibility, right? So you need to alert. Yes,
and I found that with one of my my fake accounts, my sock puppet accounts that I used with LockBit stuff. I had one that still has access to the forums and things like that. One that I hadn't really used actively, so I was still able to log in and check that stuff and see that. So I was, in other words, him bragging about it wasn't like I went in as me and saw it, where they put something up to make to impress me or to show me something. They didn't know it was me, and I was seeing this, so I believe that was legitimate. And the Prodaft thing, that was actually one of the first things I said to him when I contacted him was, hey, I know what's going on with Prodaft. I am not trying to dox you, and for those that don't know, doxing means reveal your true identity and expose you. And I told him, and that's the truth, I wasn't trying to, even if I had. Even if I happen to have his name and things like that, I wouldn't put that out there publicly. That's for again, for governments and law enforcement. That's their headache. I don't need somebody coming after me because I put their name out there. I always try to make it professional, I guess, is what my point is. Like, I don't like what they do. I want them to eventually be arrested and go to jail for it, but I'm not looking to embarrass. I'm not looking to make a name off of putting somebody else out there. So I explained that to him, and it was
rules of engagement, right? It's like rules of war, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So they make this claim that he's retired, right, John? Like they say he's retired.
Yeah.
There's this second manual that came out. It looks like a lot of people are targeting him. What do we know about that? Like, walk us through that.
Yes. So this is going to lead into it, but he has some health problems, and he has a panic attack disorder. I don't know if disorder is the right word, but he has panic attacks that are bad enough that he has had to get medical attention, and actually has had to go travel into Russia to get this medical attention for his issue. So when this happened, where they're coming after him, when I was talking to him, he told me, like, just 20 minutes ago, I had somebody hit me up on Tox claiming, that they knew who I was and that they were going to dox me. And then he also was walking to the bank, and somebody made a comment to him about if he was going there to deposit, however much his most recent ransom was. And so he's really scared, and he thinks that it's funny because he's a bad guy, but he thinks that Prodaft is worse than him, that they are also hackers and they do the same stuff that he does. They do it to make money as well. This is his words, not mine. They do it as well to make money, and that they hack hackers to make money, and they're in the same game as him. They just do it with a different perception to the public. And so he really disliked them, and he was really worried of what they were going to do with his information. Because, you know,
and somebody that's susceptible or that has anxiety, right, or panic attacks, like that's a tough business to be in.
Right.
Being involved in organized crime, even if you're calm as a cucumber, man, when you're always looking over your shoulder, let alone now if you're susceptible to a lot of anxiety, that's going to be a tough way to live.
Yeah.
So, well, and that leads into why he said he was going to retire. You know, he's like, I've made enough money for me and my family, and I just want to get out of this area, and you know, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't know that I believe that. Here, I'm on the fence, and here's why I'm on the fence. I can believe it because of the issues that he's having. I do believe that to be true. But when he went, if you're really retiring, you don't need to be on the Russian hacking forums that all the ransomware bad guys live on.
Right.
He went and he changed his account to be the name of his group, the National Hazard Agency. And if you didn't know before that account ID and who it was, you wouldn't you could only see the connection, the correlation between the old account and the new account for about a week, and after that it just shows the National Hazard Agency. So if you weren't monitoring before, you wouldn't know. So he was basically going to continue to be able to voice his opinion without it being Bassterlord, but instead being this group. Well, that sounds to me like somebody who's leading a group. It's like the Sopranos. Remember Tony Soprano? He was never quote unquote the leader of the mob. He took a step back. Well, it's kind of that same thing. He was taking a step back and going to let somebody else, lead that activity. And then he kept posting new breaches after he retired. So apparently, here's what his story is. He's retiring. He's moving. He's having a house built in Russia. He's going to move there, but like anywhere else, it takes paperwork, and that it's not easy to get that paperwork, even if you have money when you live where he lives. So he's waiting on that paperwork, but for his own safety, he better get out of there because people are going to come for him. I really think this story is going to end badly, and I don't want to see. I'd like to see him in a U.S. prison, but I don't want to see physical harm or violence come to him or his family. I really don't want that to happen to him, and I think it's going to go bad. I do.
So what makes you say that? Like, what makes you think that things are going to end badly? Is it because of what's going to happen with the fallout of the Russian-Ukraine war, or is it somebody within the cybercrime circles could betray him?
It's two reasons. There's already people in that area that are very pro-Ukraine that are looking for him. I know that for a fact. And they're not looking for him because they want to arrest him. Two, he claims that he has less than $1 million, which is still an unbelievable amount of money for that region of the world. But that math doesn't add up with the hacks that he's been behind. I'm sure he has well more than that. Yeah. So the point being that he has to worry about, he's already been summoned once by the FSB. We know that's one of the tactics that they do is they'll take somebody and say, hey, you're going to work for us now. I've been told by other ransomware criminals that they make them, like I've been told that Conti, Royal, and Royal Ransomware both have to share, LockBit told me this, have to share a percentage, or Conti had to, currently Royal has to share a percentage of their profits with the FSB, and they have to dedicate some of their time to help them with things. So whether that's true or not true, that's what I was told. So my point is that he's worried that might happen where they take him and make him do that. But the other part is Bassterlord claims that one of the people he worked with, they came home one night and there was an FSB officer sitting in his kitchen at his table with his family and was like, why aren't you working? You now work for us. And not that we're going to take a percentage, but that we're going to pay you this small amount. And if you value your family, you're going to keep working and take this. And so now there's a physical violence.
That is like out of a nightmare movie. That is so horrifying.
100%. It is horrifying, which is why I really wish he help. I know it would be crazy, and he thinks that I'm doing it for my own career, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, you issued a message to him. Yeah, at the end of Ransomware Diaries Volume 2, You issued
I
this
did.
message that we're putting out on the YouTube channel right now. Why don't you walk us through what
Yeah.
it is that you want to say to him? If you had the opportunity,
Yeah.
if Bassterlord made his way to Louisville, Kentucky, and he's sitting in a bar next to Mosher here, and you could speak to him, what would you say to him?
What I would say to him is, Bassterlord, you have connections to the most wanted ransomware crime syndicate in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You could be hard to get the guy out of there, but I'm sure as badly as the U.S. and all these allied nations want to get LockBit, that if he was willing to help, like I can't make a promise, but I can promise I could put him in direct connection with the people who could help him with that, and at least there'd be an option, door number 3, meaning retirement, death, or maybe do a little bit of jail time and have a new life because you helped. That would be what I'd ask is, save yourself, save your family, because once those guys show up and they're going to take you out or they're going to do whatever to you, it's too late. And it's cool to be, hey, I got all this money, I'm a tough bad guy and all that, but at the end of the day, once it comes down to violence, it's just not worth it, and
Right.
He's a nice guy, so I really wish I could help him. I think if he was willing to, and it was to work out in a perfect story, he helped and was able to somehow get out of that region, and was able to help. The guy could 10 years from now be working somewhere. Look at Dmitry from Recorded Future. He was arrested working for a known Russian hacking group. Look at him today. He has a house, family, lives the good life in the U.S., works for a great cybersecurity company. These stories do actually happen. It's not too late. But he's not listening. So, I did.
Well, maybe we can get him to watch our YouTube channel. Maybe we can get him to listen to the podcast.
I just want people that aren't going to harm people to watch the YouTube channel.
Let me send him a text real quick.
So John, this is excellent work, outstanding. Thank you so much for taking the time. Let me ask you this: how much of this is, because when we get into cybercrime and your investigation, it's organized crime. It's the modern day digital mafia. Is it not? When we think of when we think of the 70s and 80s Italian guys on the East Coast, we think of Gotti, we think of all of those families in Chicago. You had the outfit, and you saw some of the demise had to do with the bravado and the ego and the engaging with the media. And it seems like whenever these gangs kind of do that, bad things tend to happen. It catches the eye not only of law enforcement, which just wants to put them to jail or collect some money back, but it catches the eye of other people that, for various reasons, they're jealous, they don't like them, or you're exposing some time. And I was one of my guys was one of the victims that you took down, and now you're famous from that. I'm going to get you for that. There's a whole host of reasons why they get targeted by some really dangerous people. What's your sense of this? Why do you think some of these things, why are they getting in their own way of helping themselves?
Yeah, well, just to your point, it is very similar to what we used to see and what's on TV is like the mafia. The difference being these guys, the ransomware version of it, make way more money than the mafia could ever have dreamed of, which makes it so much worse and so much more powerful. So this version of it, it is organized, it has a structure, it is dependencies, and it's run like a business. It's so similar to that model, that mob model. Except you lack, for the most part, you lack violence, and that's the only good thing. But we've seen it now time and time again. There was a group called Maze, very, very vocal, would do interviews with press, would threaten, known people, in the U.S. and in the world, like celebrities and things like that. Then they ended up going down because they ran their mouth so much. Then you have groups, like the infamous, are evil, who they had a guy named an account called Unknown, who was extremely boisterous in the forums. But then when he would actually try to extort people, the guy sent a message to extort the president at the time, the president of the United States. and other celebrities as well. So my point is that what happens is these guys get to that point. It's exactly that John Gotti model. People didn't like John Gotti because he'd wear the big suits and he talked to the media. Well, minus being there in person, wearing the suit, these guys are the same ego. They want to be out there. They want to talk. They want to see their name out there. They want to make a brand. They want to be known, and they want to be respected. And the way to do that is to be boisterous, is to talk, to get your name out there, to do bold and crazy things, and get out there and run it like you have a PR campaign. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's probably the best at it. Revil was the best. Now they're gone. LockBit's definitely the best at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting.
But that ego is what gets them. It's that ego.
It really is. Yeah, it is, because they make missteps. What they don't understand is there's certain things every time they talk, something like some bone from their skeleton in their closet comes out of their mouth, and it's like, guys, like you're making it harder on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the ransomware diaries volume 1 is full of their mistakes that they made. It just took somebody studying it in order to find it, and looking at what they were saying and overlaying that on top of the technical data from attack data that I knew to be true, was able to explain why a lot of the abnormalities existed. And so there is a real value to looking at the human side of it. Since the bad thing I would say, since my ransomware diaries report came out, definitely have been a lot less chatter on the forums and things. But if I'm right, and I think I am, I know these guys, it's only a matter of time. They love the spotlight too much. They'll be back out there running their mouths and doing what they're doing. And I don't know where I go from here now, because it's like, do I go back to doing fake personas and sock puppets? Do I just keep talking to them since they're reaching out to me direct, or do I go back to investigating threat data and figuring it out from a technical perspective? And I don't know what the right answer is. I'm going to let the path direct me, as opposed to me direct the path on this one, because I'm not sure what's going to be the best way forward, but it's going to be interesting. I know that either way.
I have a prediction. I predict that there will be another personality that will require investigation, right? There's going to be another it's so dynamic. It's always changing. AI just jumped into the mix, right? Generative AI just jumped into the mix. There will be things that'll pop up that absolutely will need investigation, research, and how you do it. Your tactics who knows, right? You may have to go undercover, or it might be, hey, you guys know who I am. Let's talk, right?
So for all our podcast listeners and YouTube channel viewers, stay tuned for volume 3.
Oh yeah. And we and as soon as we as soon as that gets going, we're gonna be back at it, John. So JON DiMAGGIO, Analyst 1, great work that Analyst 1 is doing. Phenomenal, great work, John. Thank you so much for joining. We will have links to Ransomware Diaries Volume 2 in the show notes. From there, you can see Volume 1. You can gather all the information up from Analyst 1 as well. Any parting words, John? Anything you would like to share?
Yes, if you think that the content that I put out is interesting, check out my book by No Starch Press. It's called The Art of Cyber Warfare. Last year,
I'll have a link to that. I'm so sorry. I'll have a link to that. I have it right there on my shelf. Like, it's right there on my shelf. People,
I appreciate that.
I just thought that was I just thought that was a given.
We just thought everybody had already read that one, right? This was just an assumption. Like, you read that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, did you do an audiobook for that?
I did not. So that the publisher doesn't do like that type of content, and my book was a little bit unique compared to what they normally do. They normally do more like technical based books, and not that mine is not technical, not quite the same. same as like learning Python or something. Mine's, investigating nation state and, advanced ransomware attacks. It's a little bit different. But all of my reports do have an audio version. And that's important because, the volume 1 was like 68 pages and volume 2 was 40 something pages. So, and you get some extra commentary, and all of this is free. The reports, you get some extra commentary, and the best part is you get my sarcasm. So
no, even better. Yeah. It wouldn't be the same read without that.
All right.
Right.
Well, Jon DiMaggio, thank you so much, man. Brother,
John, thank you.
Fantastic.
Always a pleasure, man. Always.
Anything you need from us, whatever, just always reach out. We will be in touch soon. We will be watching, and we employ everybody to check out Analyst One and follow Jon DiMaggio. He's reachable on LinkedIn. He's reachable on the Analyst One site. Check out his book and good stuff. Thanks for taking the time, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening. Our next episode starts right now.
Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. And download the podcast episodes, available everywhere you get podcasts.
To support our show and get exclusive pre-release episodes and bonus content, please subscribe to Cybercrime Junkies Prime.
Link in the description and show notes. And thanks for being a cybercrime junkie.